Good afternoon, people. How are you all doing today? Now, I'm going to do another video about AFIB and ablation procedures. You might be thinking about getting an ablation done if medication hasn't worked for you or the side effects are too much for you to handle. A lot of people will go in and get an ablation done. Let me set your fears to a nice comfortable level, because I know a lot of people probably a little afraid going in to get an ablation. Now, I've had 4. I'm just one of those unlucky people. My ablation didn't work the first time, so I had to get a second time. It lasted about 6 months. Then I had to get a third time. It lasted 2.5 years. Now I just got it done the 4th time, and I'm hoping 5, 6, maybe even 10 years if I'm lucky. And if I have to go again, I will. I don't find it to be nothing to be afraid of. It's not such a bad thing. Now, this is just a video, so you can make up your own mind. But I want to just start off. I wrote things down this time so I don't forget. I've made videos in the past like, damn, I forgot to mention what the such and such. And I haven't gotten into editing my videos, so everything is raw footage. It's just the way it is. Nothing to hide, 100% truth. Now, when you go in to get an ablation, they're gonna have to take you into a room with some very expensive equipment. There's like a TV, it must be 80 inches, and all this equipment so they can map out, put catheters in, see where they're going as they're in your heart, and explore and figure out where the AFib is coming from. Now, it's pretty high-tech stuff. Pretty cool, really. So when they go into the groin area, or they can go into the neck or the shoulder. Now, most of the time I think they go into the groin area on the right side, and they just make a small cut in the skin, and they put a catheter. They actually put 3, sometimes 4 catheters up through a vein that goes up into the heart on the right side. And then they go and poke a hole. There's a diaphragm between the right and the left side. And they poke a small hole, and they put the catheters through there. Now, you're fully asleep, or some people are awake. Now, I don't know exactly. They've knocked me out every time. I don't think I'd want to be awake, especially since it's a 3 or 4 hour operation, which they like to call a procedure. Sounds less frightening that way. It's just a procedure. So you're either fully awake or slightly awake and just sedated. I would rather be knocked out for that one. Now, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm kind of talking about here. Now, you probably looked on the internet and has seen a lot of these. Now, this here, these are catheters that go in to the heart. This is the ablation, and this, they find out where the trigger is. And this diagnostic center here, they put these in. Now, some of these play different roles. And you can see the diaphragm is right here, and they gotta just poke a hole through there to get a catheter in. Now, that heals up pretty well right away. You don't have to worry too much about it. It's not a big deal. But some of these are for mapping. Some of these are for looking and putting an x-ray. And one of these puts out a small amount of fluid to keep the area from clotting when they're working on it. Because this here is going to burn little spots in and around these 4 pulmonary veins. Now, these veins are usually where the problem is. Down in here, you can get some flutter, which is why they're showing a catheter down here. But this isn't where they go into if you're going in for an AFib ablation. But they might look for a flutter in the heart. But here, they look, and the very expensive equipment they have can tell them exactly where it is short-circuiting. Now, the heart cells sometimes become defected, and they'll jump across and across. I always say across, I don't know why. Across, and when they find these areas, they'll take this and it'll burn little spots around to make a fence. It's a scar tissue fence. And sometimes they do 2, depending on where it shows. This time around I got, well, if you want to call it lucky, I kind of got lucky because there's only 1 spot and it was over here and he couldn't find anywhere else, and it gave me all kinds of problems. But that one little spot they burned, and he did it 3 times around the area so that it was guaranteed not to cause me problems. And he looked for flutters, and as far as I was doing, I had no flutters, and they fixed this up, and then I was done. Then they pull all this out. This here, when it burns, creates scar tissue, which then the electrical part of the heart can't jump across, so it doesn't short circuit, and you end up with a regular heartbeat. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to end up with that regular heartbeat. It's amazing how some people get a defected heart and end up with AFib. Now, you can end up with AFib for a number of reasons. Your heart stretches, it gets too large. Even athletes can have AFib. AFib is caused by heart attacks, if the heart gets damaged in any way. An enlarged heart, which even athletes get. Athletes work out their whole life. It's hard on their heart, and they end up with AFib because the heart has been stretched and expanded. Now, even the most physically fit people, Arnold Schwarzenegger's got heart problems because he's worked out and he ate a lot of protein, which usually comes with a lot of saturated fats and stuff. And so he's got issues, and so does Sylvester Stallone. He's also had heart issues. And there's certain people that have got AFib. Howie Mandel's got AFib. The President of the United States, that's Joe Biden, he has AFib. So it can be controlled. Now, unfortunately, it's not really, there's no cure, but the control is very good because it could last years and years. And then if you got to get another one, big deal. You get another one, it lasts years. So now there's 2 kinds of ablations. There's the cryoablation, which is where they freeze it. As you can see this here, this is a radio frequency ablation. It doesn't have the same thing as a cryo. Cryo has a circle around the end, and what they do is they put it up against this pulmonary vein, and it damages basically all the way around the outside, which creates that scar tissue, which creates the heart from not being able to jump across. It's like a fence. So that works, apparently, only if you're getting your first ablation. I was talking to my electrophysiologist, the guy that did my ablation, and I asked him about it, and he said it doesn't work after the first time, and I believe that is because after you've created scar tissue, that little ring that goes around the pulmonary vein can't sit flat and flush up against the heart, so you end up with gaps. So I can see why the cryo doesn't work after you get your first ablation. But then after that, it's the radio frequency one, and that's the one they've always used on me. They've never used the cryo one. So that's a choice you'll have to have with your cardiologist. And now stress is a hell of a thing when it comes to AFib. It causes anxiety. It's like just partners in crime, like I've said before on my other video. But it's crazy because the AFib gets triggered, and then you get excited and scared because your anxiety levels have gone up, and then that triggers more adrenaline, and that causes more AFib, and the more AFib causes more anxiety. So it feeds itself back and forth continuously until you're like just out of it. You can't even function properly anymore because you can't think straight. Your brain is full of fog, and you just you're tired. Your oxygen levels are low. They don't work right, because when your heart doesn't beat right, it affects all the other organs, your lungs especially. The blood can't pass through the lungs to pick up the oxygen properly because your heart is only beating about 85% efficiently, because once it's not in rhythm, it's not beating efficiently. It's not a smooth, efficient heartbeat. So it affects things. It doesn't pick up oxygen properly. So for me, the symptoms were absolutely horrible. So I'm glad to do anything it takes to get rid of it. So I'm glad they have this, because the medication never worked for me. None of it. Except for the one that's toxic, and that was the amiodarone, and they have problems with that, and doctors don't use it for very long. They only use it long enough to figure out what they can do to fix the AFib. Some people, your doctor will say, you're going to be on it for the rest of your life, but it's so hard on your organs because the iodine is so high that, like, the iodine levels in the medication are so high that it affects everything, especially your thyroid. It messed up my thyroid, and it didn't take that long, 6 months on that drug, and my thyroid went wacky on me. And then that caused a regular heartbeat because the thyroid also has something to do with that. So it's a big mess. The whole thing is just complicated and miserable. So my trip down to Vancouver was not great because I was already having AFib just about every day. And it was really a problem. I would have to say it was every day, but I'd get about a 10% time out of the day where it would give me a break, and I would feel great when it was out, back in rhythm. And it sucked going down to Vancouver because the traffic driving around Vancouver is busy. I'm not used to that. I live in a smaller town. We're about 80,000 people, and driving around Vancouver is stressful. The traffic, the people. It took us an hour to go 13 kilometers. And then you get into a parkade under the hospital, and there's nowhere to park. And when you do find a parking spot, it's so tight you got to let your passengers out of the car before you park because there's no room to get out. Too busy for this guy. I'm just kind of an old country boy that likes his space. And not just that, I went down, I had to go in 3 times to the hospital because the first time, a CT scan. They just want to make sure everything's proper and nothing's going to cause any problems. So I went down for a CT scan, but my AFib was acting up like crazy. And when I went into the CT scan, and I could see when they were pulling me out, they got a screen on the top part of it. And I could see my rhythm was totally out of whack, and my heartbeat was going as much as 180 beats a minute. The lady almost, I was joking saying, yeah, that's my AFib. She thought, oh, geez. She goes, okay. She goes, I almost thought there was something wrong with the machine. Because not a lot of people suffer as much as like I do. There's people out there that have AFib really bad, and the rhythm, being out of rhythm is so often. There's other people that don't have to worry about it so much because, well, they get it once, twice, maybe 3 times in a year. When you get it every day, it really disrupts. You can't go to work. You don't want to go for dinner. You don't want to leave the house. You don't want to go see your friends. A lot of times you just want to lay in bed and hope it goes away. I've tried meditation. I've tried all kinds of things. I've had this for 10 years, so I've got my experience with AFib. That's why I figured I'd make this video and explain things. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer anything. Or if you have any ideas, I'll be glad to listen to them. And so the CT scan that I went for, my heart went crazy. Then that same day, I go back to my hotel room and I get a call from the hospital. They're like, they seen something on my heart. So they wanted me to come back down so that I could get echocardiogram, right? I think. They put that goo on you and then they roll that stuff and they can see what's going on. they thought there was fluid or something built up around my heart, and they had to check it out. So they had to go back down there, and I was again in full out AFib, feeling like crap, almost like flu-like symptoms with anxiety and just nervous because I don't know what it is that they're looking at. And then by 1:30 in the afternoon, they were done, and I went home, and before 5 they called me, and my cardiologist guy said he doesn't know what they were looking at, so it was nothing. So that was a huge relief. Then the very next day is the operation. Now I'm thinking to myself, I've got some lorazepam, anxiety drugs that I take every once in a while, and I didn't know if I should take them before I go down there because they're going to knock me out anyway. And I don't know if it'd interact with it, but I thought to myself, I can't go through that again, the same as the CT scans. So basically what I did was I took 2 lorazepam before I left, and boy, did that help. I kept calm. I wasn't so excited. My AFib stayed under control. It was way better than the day before. So if you're having problems, don't be shy to ask your doctor for some lorazepam. Try not to take too many because I hear they're addicting, but I don't know. I've been taking them, and I don't take them all the time. I take them when I need them. And I don't feel no addiction. I don't know what they're talking about. Lorazepam is, I think, pretty safe, pretty easy, and it comes in handy when you have anxiety. So if you can maybe get some of those from your doctor, it would help your anxiety when your AFib kicks in. You take one of those, it decreases the anxiety, which is going to decrease your AFib. So it's very handy that way. Now the next thing is the recovery time. Now, the recovery time is surprising because I went down at 6:30 in the morning. By like 7:30, I was in the operating room. They knocked me out. I woke up, it was like 1 o'clock, and they were done. Now, when they're done, they have to wait till they make sure you're not going to be bleeding out of that growing area that they had to cut into to put the catheters in. 3 of them, because they got the mapping one, like I said. They got the one that puts out the little bit of juice to keep your blood from clotting, because you don't want to have a heart attack when you're under there. The other thing is that the risk factors, there are some during the operation, but they're like 1 in 1,000 for like a heart attack, and 1 in 2,000 for something else. And it's very, very minimum. Everything is like, the chances of it happening are like 1 in 1,000. So again, it's nothing to really worry about. So the recovery time is when you're done, a week without picking up anything 10 pounds or more. And you just got to take it easy. Don't be jogging, running, or any of that stuff. You got quite a bruise. You got to take care of that inserted area that they went into. Make sure it doesn't get infected. Keep it clean. And within 2 weeks, you can just about go back to your normal life. You can even, go back to work, and you'll be okay. Just still, you're going to be bruised around that one area. And after that, everything should be fine. And the last thing I want to talk about is if you're the kind of person that doesn't get AFib once in a while, and you're one of those unlucky people to have AFib permanently, because it does happen. And that's the other thing. If you do have AFib, don't mess around with it. Get it taken care of, because the longer you wait for stuff to get done, the harder it is to get rid of it. That's probably why I ended up with 4 ablations, because I had a cardiologist in the very beginning that told me it was just palpitations. Don't worry about it. Try not to stress. It'll probably go away as you got older. And he kind of laughed about it because it was just palpitations. No big deal. You can get palpitations if somebody scares you. Your heart misses a beat all the time. It's not a big deal. It's when it does it for like, more than 30 seconds then, you know, you're 5 minutes into it and your heart is still out of rhythm. That's really not palpitations. That's probably AFib. But this doctor, he said that, so for the first 3 years, I thought I was just putting up with it, and it was palpitations, and he said nothing to worry about. Well, that was wrong. And if that doctor was still around, I would have went down there and gave him a piece of my mind, because he really ticks me off. I can't believe that he was so incompetent. He gives me one ECG and he just does that and says that it's, I don't even want to talk about it. So I ended up with another cardiologist. He ran me through a bunch of tests, a stress test, echocardiogram, and that gooey stuff on my heart, and just looked at everything. And he says, you have AFib. So we talked about medication. We tried the different medications, and over time, nothing worked. Some things made it worse. But I ended up on that amiodarone for a while, waiting for my ablation. So I knew I wasn't going to be on it forever. So I was okay with taking it. But if you ever look it up, look it up. But Google really does point in the direction of bad news. Google has more bad news than good news. And that's not right, because it's not always accurate. It's kind of a bunch of bullshit. There's a lot of things. If you're ever going to look stuff up on Google, the first thing you punch in is good news and then your problem. Because look at the things on a brighter side, because the attention that people want usually comes from bad stuff. If it's bad, you're going to pay attention to it, and you're going to, take it seriously, and you're going to believe it. But there are so many things that aren't accurate on Google. It's a great tool. I mean, you can find out just about anything. But again, I'm getting off track. If you have permanent AFib, and I've also stayed in contact with a cardiologist in York, England. He's a great guy, always made me feel comfortable. If you ever want to look it up, it's under York Cardiology, and he's got lots of videos about all kinds of heart things, especially AFib and irregular heartbeats. And he makes you feel comfortable, and he has positive news usually. So just look that guy up. He has a lot more information than I do. But he says that if you have permanent AFib, what happens, because you're not as symptomatic, the body seems to adjust, because there's been huge studies on it, and the body adjusts to a permanent AFib. So your symptoms aren't as bad, because if I was in permanent AFib and I felt the symptoms that I usually feel this way, I don't know if I could handle that for years to go. I just, years and years, I don't know what I'd do, but I don't think I could handle it. That's how bad my AFib was. So it's actually comforting news. Like I said, he gives you comforting news. It is comforting news knowing that if I ever ended up in permanent AFib, at least the symptoms would be gone. It's not so bad if the symptoms aren't there to bother you. You just have to put up with the irregular heartbeat. Now, it's not nice, but it's sure better than those symptoms. Those symptoms just, like I said before, they're horrible. I hate them. I really do. So now, after my ablation, I feel great. I am 2 weeks, coming up on 2 weeks here pretty quick. Another 4 days, 5 days, 3 days. What's today? Tuesday. Oh, shit, it's only a couple days. Another couple more days, it'll be 2 weeks. And I feel great. I got my energy. I can breathe. Oxygen levels, 98%. And I'm feeling absolutely great, and it's perfect because it's almost Christmas. Merry Christmas to people. Happy holidays. Whatever you want to say. I'm going to make more videos. I hope you stick around. Click the notifications. Subscribe. Share. Because I have a lot more things to say. I got to make more videos. I know I'm slacking off here. But I wanted to get this last one out for AFib. Because if you're thinking about it, maybe you needed somebody, just a normal guy, to explain it to you. Sometimes you look on Google and it gets confusing, and there's some things I can't even find on Google that I was, curious about. It's like, how come? Like the diaphragm that's in between the left side and the right side of the heart, I could not find anything about that, but I know it exists because I talked to my doctor about it and he explained it to me. So next time, I am going to talk about, you know what? I'm going to leave that a mystery. I'm not going to say anything right now. I'm going to leave it at that. Hope you guys all enjoy your Christmas, and I hope you found some comfort in this if you're thinking about getting an ablation. So thanks for watching. Stay healthy. Stay walking.